worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's all.
And welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things everything, the podcast where we talk about all things comics, all things movies, all things video games, all things toys, all things Lego, all things Muppets, all things wrestling, all things sports, anything and everything, because we are your one-stop shop for everything pop culture. It's just me, Boris. And the reason it's just me is because today's episode is a very special episode. We had the opportunity to chat with Carl Milroy of Red Thread Brewing. And we just had a chat about beers. We had a chat about the process. We had a chat about how difficult it is in Ontario to get your beer in stores. So that's today's episode. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a fun one. So without further ado, here is the interview. All right, we are joined by the founder of Red Thread Brewing. He is Carl Milroy. Carl, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah. What's up? How you doing, guys?
Fantastic. Really good day. Really busy day. Can't complain too much. But, it's one of those days where I do want to complain, but I might just have a beer instead.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right.
I'm already there.
Exactly. There you go. All right, Carl. So you've been on the show before. We were talking Mandalorian. I promised that you would be back, and here you are. So instead of, we can geek out a little later, but I want to geek out about your world, and that being the world of beer, and kind of getting to know a little more about the process, the business end, the art, the overall from idea to getting it into stores, the full on process. So that's kind of what I want to cover today. So I think let's start with the very basics. Red Thread Brewing. How did it start? Why would you do such a thing to yourself? Because I'm sure it can be super stressful. So let's get into the mind of Carl.
Yeah, worst decision ever. No, just kidding. Everyone in our industry kind of jokes it's a labor of love, and it's literally a labor of love. Emphasis on labor.
Yeah.
If you don't love it, it's a tough business. It's a slugfest for sure. But I love it, right? It keeps me entertained, keeps me drinking. It's a very sociable industry. So if you like, getting out and about and talking to people, and it's also creative, right? For me, it's a creative outlet. So I really do enjoy that aspect of it, much like being a chef, or if you're, a designer or something, there's always those creative outlets. But it started quite a while ago with a partner, just an idea, an actual customer of mine who, we saw the kind of emergence of the craft beer scene, and we were chatting about it. And there's those offhand comments like, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, we should do that. And then, we did that a few times, and then I was like, hey, why don't we actually do this? Let's do this. So it literally came down to that one day. It was just a little bit of respect and trust between us. And he was a chef and I was a certified sommelier. So we both had pretty good palates, and we just said, hey, let's do it. Let's take the plunge. So we started planning, and, a couple of years later, there it was.
Exactly. And that's, I think you hit a couple points that I wanted to kind of talk about. You brought up that it being like an art. So let's take a step back. You are a a trained sommelier. Tell me about that. It's a word that's used a lot. It's a word that a lot of people have heard. It's a fancy person in a restaurant often, and that's all they know about a sommelier. So tell me a little about like how you became a sommelier. Are you a master sommelier, and kind of like what you did before you started Red Thread Brewing?
Yes, sommelier is sort of like a wine geek, essentially. All right, we're talking about geeking out. So, yeah, I was a geek on wine, and then just loved wines, loved drinking wines, talking about wines, and collecting wines, all that kind of stuff. I worked in sales, so I sold some wines and spirits and a tiny bit of beer, and I just took several steps to get accredited. There's a couple places in Canada and certainly around the world where you can do that. No, I'm not a master sommelier. There's, I forget, I don't know how many in Canada now, but not many, like probably under a dozen if I had to guess. Kind of lost track. But yeah, those guys are like uber geeks in terms of the wine world. Very impressive. It was a little bit difficult to get, but it took maybe like a couple of years to get through that. I have to go to schooling, and apart from the theory, there's obviously the tasting, right? So you have to do blind tasting of wines. But it's just about recognizing scents and smells essentially. And I sort of apply that to the beer world now.
And that's awesome. Like, and that's the other part that I kind of wanted to talk about. You talked about it being an art, kind of being like a chef. And I think kind of like, microbrewers and craft beers been the hot word and the kind of the hot topic for the past 5 years in the food and beverage industry. So, at its core, can you explain to our listeners what is a craft brewery?
Yeah, essentially anything that's sort of like a small business, independently owned, and then makes things to a certain sort of quality standard. So we don't use, corn syrup and things like that, all the shortcuts. You're making true beer, right? True craft products. And then also, innovating and making several different products. So you're not just making sort of your one Pilsner year after year after year, right? You're making imperial stouts and barrel aged stuff and radlers and fruit and all that kind of stuff. So anything that's sort of small, independent, crafty, I guess that's what a craft brewery would be.
Exactly. Because a lot of people, when they think of craft brewery and craft beers and microbrews and all of those terms, they kind of think of like, fruity beers and hoppy beers and this and that. I just want to like hammer out the idea that it's more than just that. It's essentially more the business size, the independently owned, the microbrewery. That's really what it's at, where it's at, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yep. And in terms of like, like I just said, the experimenting of the various flavors and things like that. Talk to me about like how you come up with some of your flavors and from the idea to actually getting them out into the store.
Well, a couple different questions there rolled into one. Yeah. So getting stuff into the store is a little bit difficult, right? So, there's in our world, for retail, there's sort of three channels, right? So if you're on Ontario based, I'm talking sort of from an Ontario perspective here, but there's the LCBO, the monopoly, right? The Liquor Control Board. Very hard to get in there. It's almost like winning the lottery in a sense. So tough to get in. And then, if you can get in, it's also a difficult process, right? They're very, very difficult to deal with. And you don't make much margin there, right? So the breweries don't make a lot of money there, which is pretty tough. Beer store is a little bit different. And anyone has access to the beer store. So it's pay to play. So you just, call them up and tell them you want to come in, and you just let them know how many stores you want to sign up for, and you're good to go. Right. So because they're a private corporation, right, owned by I don't know if people know this, but the sort of the big three, like Sleeman's, Labatt's, Molson's. So you can just get in there if you want. And the third channel recently, actually really almost 4 now, was the emergence of grocery stores, which again are pretty tough to get into if you're talking about the big chains like Loblaws and Walmart, who have sort of annual and semi-annual planograms and decision making about when they add new products. And then now there's sort of the emergence of the LCOs, they call it, so the convenience stores, which they're just starting to roll out, right? I forget how many there are now, like 40 or so, where a lot of these SOs and convenience stores and gas stations have little mini liquor stores in them now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I actually didn't one day either. My partner called me up and he's like, the SO right by me has beer. Like, what? Okay, let's go talk to them. Yeah. So then, obviously we did some research on the LCBO website. Yeah, they did. It was, I don't know if it just got swept under the rug because of COVID, but that's a big trend, right? They've licensed a bunch of these convenience stores, often in gas stations, mostly. And I don't know if you heard, so there's a big sort of controversy in the beer world about 7-Eleven now, because I guess 7-Eleven wanted to have licenses, and for whatever reason they couldn't get them. So now they applied to be a licensee, which is essentially a bar. So they got approved. So now there's going to be like 70 7-Eleven locations that can serve you beer, like a pint. Like you could go in and have a pint or a bottle of, of beer or wine. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Like, it's pretty crazy, but a lot of people are guessing that that's just a backdoor way for them to offer beer for takeout and delivery. Because if they're a licensee, aka like a restaurant, they were extended licenses to now have beer to go, right? So if you purchase food, like if you're purchasing a club sandwich and fries, you get some beer or a bottle of vodka tacked on at a traditional restaurant. Well, I guess 7-Eleven's sort of thinking, hey, come in and get a chimichanga and a 6-pack, right? Or a slushy and a whatever, right? So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting how this rolls out.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, when you think about it, even just a few years ago, I'm sure the avenues that you had were very limited to, either you sell it on your own or you go through the LCBO, which is, like you said, half near impossible, or the beer store. So, I kind of just want to explain to our non-Canadian, non-Ontario listeners that, here in Ontario, we're very limited in where we can even buy alcohol. It's not like, you can't just walk to your corner store and pick up a 12 as you're picking up, your whatever it is else that you need. It's very controlled. So, being a distributor like yourself, you kind of have to go through all the motions, file the paperwork, and, pray to some deity and, and hope that you can be picked up by them. But like you said, the beer store is a little easier, but it's still, there's still a process around it. So it's a little more difficult to kind of get your brand out there into stores here in Ontario versus, other places.
For sure. And so what do you guys think? You're great average guys. You like to have a beer or two every now and then. What do you guys think? You've grown up having to go to the Monopoly, the liquor control store. Now, are you guys down with being able to grab it at the grocery store or when you stop for gas? What's your take?
Honestly, that answer has changed in the past 12 months, and that's kind of where I wanted to go to next, but we'll go there in a little bit. I'm so used to going to the LCBO or the beer store and picking up my beer from there. And then I would say that when grocery stores were able to start selling, it was a lot more convenient, so I did that when I was doing my grocery shopping. But, because of COVID, my new thing is going straight to the source. I have a ton of microbrews around me here in downtown, and for me, it's just better to go straight to the source. Oftentimes, the prices are better. You can always find a good deal, and you're at the end of the day, you're helping the business, and that, to me, that's what it's all about.
I also wanted to bring up one thing really quick, and that is when I started talking with Carl about some of the extracurricular things that we were doing in a sporting space, one of his main distribution points was bars and just being actually on the taps in a pub, right? And I know COVID has kind of suspended that, but that seemed to me, that really struck me, Carl, as the major lifeblood of actually getting the interest to get the push to put your products into the LCBO and get them more widely distributed.
Yeah, for sure. That's one avenue or one way you could approach it. They used to say brands were built on premise, but I think you could argue brands can be built in retail now, and there's certainly a lot of examples of that. But for us, yeah, we love being in the on premise sector. That's the bars and restaurants. I'm a bit of a pub hound, so I'd love nothing better to me than just going out for a beer somewhere, right? Like I absolutely cherish that experience. I love it. I'll do, any excuse for me to go for a pint. I remember I'd go out for a run, a jog, and I would literally stop at the bar and have a pint. It was so sort of counterproductive of me trying to get exercise, but it's like, man, I just love it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been hard through COVID, right? Like not only us as a brewery, I mean, we lost 80% of our revenue overnight having all the bars and events closed, but just that's the lifeblood for a lot of people, right? Think about just anyone who just loves to go out and be social and have a pint or a bite, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But I think also in the past 12 months, I feel that a lot of breweries have kind of come out of the woodwork in the sense of you knew that they were around, but now they're part of the community. They're such a core part of any BIA that they're a part of. And I find that now it's such a focus and a focal point because I find that the microbrewers are the ones who are really getting hit with COVID. So I'm finding that, you're really starting to hear about them. There seems to be a real push, like go to X brewery, pick it up from X brewery. This is the place to go. You want to be here. You want to do this. So can you kind of expand on that a little bit and talk about your experience in terms of, having that community feeling around your customers and that direct to order experience?
Yeah, I think for us, we were always community focused. So we did a lot of work within the community, and I'm sure there's a lot of other breweries that did as well. Like a lot of breweries, we had to pivot during COVID and find another way to reach the consumer, right? So we were able to pivot and get some direct delivery going. So now we deliver across all over Ontario. So people can order our beer, which is great. So that's, really saved us from going bankrupt essentially. But I think maybe the community aspects maybe just been a little bit heightened, I would say. I think a lot of the noise has sort of disappeared and everyone's at home on their computers and their phones. And, now that we're a little bit more focused on the digital and on Facebook groups and things like that, maybe it's just shining through a little bit more. But I think the community involvement was always there probably for the breweries.
Yeah, exactly. And so, going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of getting a beer from concept to actually having it ready for getting it into stores. Can you talk through that little that creative process?
Yeah, sorry, I guess I didn't really get into that. That process that process is for me, anyways. I'm sure it's different for every brewery, but for us, it's pretty open ended. Sometimes it comes from an idea for a beer, and then you sort of create the beer, and then once you have that beer, you sort of create the name and the marketing around it. And sometimes it's a little bit the other way around. Like I've got in the back of my mind, I've got a great name for a beer I want to do, but I haven't really figured out which style will go quite with it and how the marketing's done yet. And then sometimes it's, it's through collaboration, right? So we're doing a collaboration with another brewery later in March called Rhythm and Brews. And, it's just a lot of back and forth. Like, what do you like? What do you make? What's in your portfolio now? Let's stay away from what you're already doing a lot of, and let's do something else. And, it's just a little bit of that back and forth, right? So finding that kind of that common ground and going at it that way. But yeah, like I say, sometimes it's, following market trends, looking at what's selling. Sometimes it's stylistic, right? Like a lot of breweries like to do big ABV beers. Some love barrel aged stuff. For us, we like really sort of sessionable, sort of lower gravity stuff. So sometimes it comes out of style. Trends. Yeah, there's no real sort of straight answer to that one, I guess.
Yeah,
I can recall Sorry, I can recall one time meeting with you in a pub and you having a bottle of the Red X Ale, which I know you guys distribute in a lot of LCBOs right now. And I just remember you were just really excited about the fact that you had brewed this beer, you conceptualized it, and you were forming your plan around it at that point. So it's interesting that you've described both ways of doing it, because I know that we've done collaborations in the past, and it's been a lot of fun working with your company on that with my other full-time job from the past. But yeah, I thought your excitement around Red X was really infectious. I recall that night very well.
Great. Yeah, I remember that too. That was a great night, and shared connection over a pint, right? Our love of soccer. So hopefully that'll be coming back shortly.
I hope so. I miss it so much. It's not even funny. It's crazy. Like, it's the simple things. Like you said earlier, going out and going into a bar for a beer. Like, that's probably one of the things I miss the most.
Absolutely. Yeah. Done a little bit of that this week because we're open here. So it's been nice.
Yeah. You're lucky. Not here in the city.
No.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
All right. So another thing that, taking a look at other focuses of Red Thread, one thing that's been highlighted is the environmental consciousness and sustainability. So this is something I kind of wanted to ask about. Like, what do you reuse? How do you, is this important for you? Is this kind of like one of your key philosophies for your brewery? Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's just one of those things where we're socially and environmentally conscious companies as much as we can. So, we try and use local ingredients whenever we can. Using Canadian grains is a big thing for me, or local hops, or, we make our own barbecue sauce and we put the beer in it, but we use all local ingredients there. It's even like a local honey as well. So we don't, buy Billy V honey from that comes from China or whatever. That's a big thing. Even just little things like, we tend to save a lot of our unused packaging. We ask customers, licensees and customers to save our case trays. So it's a piece of cardboard that, a lot of places will go deliver, like, oh yeah, I got a couple case trays for them. Like, you want those back? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, so we recycle those. If we send out a package for shipping, you have to buy some sort of stuffing essentially for it, right? So like, why go and create another product and buy that? We have, the backs of stickers or labels, LCBO bags, like all that stuff we crumple up and use as shipping packaging. So, just any little ways you can sort of help the environment around you. That's a good thing for us. Like, it's not necessarily our driving force, but we do what we can. And the big thing for me is using Canadian companies, right? So I find that, if you want to be a local company and you want, local support, that's got to be your MO, and you got to do what you say, right? So since our inception, I've used only Canadian companies for our suppliers. So pretty proud of that. So that's just something, I just don't understand if, other breweries are saying, hey, support local, support us, when they're buying stuff from all over the place in China and getting the cheapest price. So exactly. It just doesn't jive for me.
That's a huge part for me as well. It's like, it's kind of understanding not only, and being the responsible company, right? And that's for me what it's mainly about, and kind of why I would rather support a company like yours as opposed to other microbrews who kind of just do, and like you said, get the cheapest possible things, and that's that.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of collaborations and whatnot, you talked about some collaborations that you've had with other breweries, but if scrolling through your social media, you kind of see these packs that you can create your own pizza and things like that. Do you specifically kind of like pair a beer? Like, what if I was going to order one of these? What do I get? What should I order?
What should you order? Everything.
Of course.
Everything. Neat thing we've kind of gotten into is the food side of things. So we're developing like a line of soups. So we're collaborating with basically an audio recipe company. So they're curators of different types of food and soups. So that's fun. We love our barbecue sauce is amazing. The Haas sauce. It has of course, all these things have our actual beer in it. So that's fun. And then, there's a lot of neat sort of collaborations. And like I say, try and support other local companies, other artisan companies. There's so many amazing small companies out there that I think just don't get noticed. So if we can do our part to try and help raise a bit of awareness, then everybody wins, I think.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, you joined in on a local craft beer festival pre-COVID in the before times. And I was really blown away by the scene. That was the first annual for Newmarket. And I was blown away by the scene. And you guys were just, one of the busiest booths there. They were all busy. I think we sold out a beer before the end of the show. And you had gone out to get even more. And you guys kind of championed the day because everybody was just thirsty at that point. And it was really nice to see all the companies coming together and supporting one another and seeing that community and seeing the actual town that you're based in giving back or supporting and trying to understand and becoming active participants with your company.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great day. The Community Craft Beer Festival. Yeah, the first one. I remember that day because it was so stinking hot. And, it was almost the perfect storm. Like, man, people were drinking that day. It was crazy. I remember, literally having to leave the festival, like, I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 times to like literally restock and just slam my SUV full of beers. It was crazy. So that was fun. Another neat sort of like initiative or collaboration, if I could just pipe in quickly, because it's pretty timely with the start of March here, is the new movement called Wet March, which we're a part of. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but it's almost like the anti-dry Feb or dry Jan. So it's kind of about promoting. It's about promoting small, craft beer, mead or cider, and trying to, post about it every day if you can, or whatever days you can in March, and kind of raise awareness for all these small, breweries and cideries. So you just simply, have a beer, have a cider, take a picture and post it and tag them. You do, hashtag Wet March. It's a community of, craft. It's really came out of the community, right? So it's craft beer enthusiasts and influencers that have come together to create this movement, and just saying, hey, post about it and share what you're drinking, and try and do it every day if you can. And if not, that's fine too. But it's a neat program. And I think they've got it where the participating breweries will chip in and give to a charity of their choice, right? So it's kind of driven by the community. So every time they tag, that brewery gives directly to the charity. And then the person posting gets an entry into a month-end prize. So the more you post, the more entries you get. So it's kind of like a win-win-win.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
And I see that there is also another event this Friday, March 5th, and that's oyster shucking and beer pairing. Do you want to tell the listeners about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Shucker Patty. I don't know if you guys know Shucker Patty. He's it's at Shucker Patty on Instagram. He's the real deal, man. He's probably like the foremost expert in the world on oysters. He's like, he's launched seafood shops. He's a former restaurateur. He's also, he's a Canadian and Torontonian, whoop, whoop, yep. But also the Guinness World Record holder for shucking the most oysters in a minute. I forget what his record is. You'd have to Google it. It's crazy. Like, I can maybe do one in a minute. He's done like, I don't know what it was, like 80 or something like that, something crazy. I think he did over 1,000 in an hour or something. And he's also shucked oysters on TV with Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, which is pretty cool. So wow. Yeah, he's a great guy. And we're doing on Zoom an oyster and beer pairing and shucking event, where you get oyster and beer delivered right to your door. Jump on Zoom for a quick 1 hour happy hour before dinner, and just learn how to shuck and have some fun, eat some oysters, drink some beer. What could be better, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Like, there's very few things better than alcohol, specifically beer, and oysters. Like, it's just something, it's a match made in heaven, to say the least.
Yeah, what about you, Phil? You dig on oysters or what?
I'm more of a mussel kind of guy, but I wouldn't be opposed to the oysters. I'm a big seafood guy. You know, I got roots out east, so
nice.
You know, I'd definitely be down for it. I'd give it a shot. And if you pair it with beer, I'm going to be happy. So I'm just looking forward to wet March and maybe having not the blizzard out there that we had today, and being able to actually sit out on my porch and take one of my classic pictures of popping a beer on the porch, and it'll be a Red Thread Brewery for sure.
Beauty.
All right, so we've talked about the company, we've talked about beer, we've talked about events, we've talked about how you create the beer. All right, let's assume that I am a new beer drinker, which is almost laughable at this point. But let's assume I'm a new beer drinker. And I go in and I say, Carl, I want to try my first beer. What would you give me?
Ooh, Make Tracks Lager for sure. That's our flagship lager. Great entryway to craft beer. It's got lots of flavor, made with Canadian grains and Ontario hops. So we're super proud of that. It's delicious, lots of flavor, but still crisp, clean, and refreshing. And available at the LCBO and a killer price, $2.95 for a tall can.
Oh, that's nice. Really good. That's really good. All right, and then in terms of the flavored beers, what flavored beer would you give to me if I'm like, okay, Carl, I want a flavored beer now. That first one is great. I'm a beer drinker now. I need something with more flavor, something a little like on the sweeter side, a little fruity.
You might want to try our Liquidate. So that comes in a black 100% UV resistant bottle, which is pretty cool. And it's a takeoff of, everyone's had the After Eights, right? The chocolate and mint. It's a classic. So we sort of said, what's the beer version of an After Eight? And we called it Liquidate, right? So it's a chocolate mint stout. It's light, easy drinking, 4.5%. Sometimes you'll get a stout and they'll be really high gravity. So this is approachable. You can have a couple of them. Great for dessert. Super refreshing. And we've gotten great feedback on that.
That's awesome. I love it. Now, in terms of kind of like what's coming up for Red Thread, what's in the pipeline? What can you tell listeners, and mainly me and Phil?
Yeah, always lots of stuff. Like I say, keep an eye on our new soup line coming out, where we're going to be launching a line of soups with beer in it, which is pretty cool. That'll be available for delivery to your door, which will be pretty fun. Everybody likes soups, I should think. What else? And then, sort of on the beer side is our collaboration with Rhythm and Brews. So that'll be coming up. We're going to brew that in a couple weeks. I'll keep the style on the DL, but stay tuned for that. I'll probably launch in April. So once hopefully the weather turns by then, it'll be nice.
Oh, that's perfect. And honestly, Carl, I cannot wait to have a beer with you. It's been way too long. But before we go, can you tell our listeners how they can find you and where they can find you?
100%. Yeah. So you can find our flagship lager at a bunch of LCBOs. So you can always jump on lcbo.com and do a search for, Make Tracks or for Red Thread or RT Brewing. We go by RT Brewing for short, just an abbreviation. That you'll see that on all our social handles. So Twitter, Instagram is at RT Brewing. So hit us up there, follow our journey, which is super fun. And of course, you can jump on the website, www.rtbrewing.ca/shop for a quick shortcut. Go right to all our goodies. That's probably the best way to find us. And of course, we can deliver right to your door if anyone's looking for some tasty beer and tasty snacks.
Awesome, Carl. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And, we're going to bother you again. We're going to be talking about beer again. We're going to be geeking out about Star Wars and other things very soon. But I just wanted to thank you for coming on, having this chat. And I'm sure that we will be in touch soon.
100%. No, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. It's been great. And I love talking about beer and anything else.
And that's that. I hope that you enjoyed the interview. I want to thank Carl once again for joining us on the show. He's truly a friend of the It's Canon podcast, and I cannot wait to geek out, whether it be about beer, whether it be about Star Wars, or whether it be about something new altogether. Carl, you're welcome on the show anytime, so thank you again. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. We will be bringing you more interviews and more specials once again, but, you know, we love having conversations and having different people from different walks of life, so hopefully you enjoy that also. If you have any feedback, you can send it to us in many different ways. You can find us on all of the social medias, and you can find us at itcanonpodcast.com. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's all at It's Canon Podcast. You can also find us on our website, and that's www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can also email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. We welcome any and all feedback. It just doesn't have to be good. We welcome criticisms. We want the show to be for you. So please let us know what you think. You can find us on all the podcasting apps. And if there's an app you can't find us on, let us know. But you can for sure find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Music. You can find us, or anything, everywhere. Amazon. You can find us everywhere. So reach out. Let us know, have us listen, subscribe, drop a review, and I want to thank you for listening to the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things everything, the podcast where we talk about all things video games, comic books, toys, and the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. On behalf of Tyler, on behalf of Phil, I'm Boris. Good night.